Hello, and today I would like to talk about a extension onto the tie spray bracer shuffle I showed earlier about getting prices for Umbra Shards, Gloom Dust and Expulsum based off having a Tailoring and Enchanter like Samadan here, and I'm working out how to get the enchanting materials out of the bracers by disenchanting the blues and scrapping the greens. Now today I'd like to extend that further and include another character who is a Leatherworker. So Earthen here is my Leatherworker and Skinner, so we're going to use a combination of both Samadan, the Enchanter and Tailor, and Earthen, the Leatherworker and Skinner. The skinning's not important really, it's mainly the leatherworking. So the thing that was missing in my last video was having a price for veiled crystals. So first off, I'd like to say a big thank you to the gold making community who made me aware of this. I'm simply wrapping up this information and combining it into my spreadsheet from earlier. So what this is in essence is basically using the cheapest way possible to make a bracer that's going to then be disenchanted or scrapped. So that will be either tie spray bracers or coarse leather arm guards or shimmer scale bracers. And whichever of those is the cheapest, you then disenchant the blues, you scrap the greens. So the person who has the greens is then going to use that expulsum that you got from the greens to make honourable combatant bracers. Now those bracers, they used to be a combination between blue and purple ones, but now they have a guaranteed chance to be purple ones. And what that means is they're guaranteed to turn into a veiled crystal, which is great because then that gives us a price for veiled crystals that is based off of crafting something, which is fantastic. So what I did was take all this information, looked at all the things I would need and put them into a spreadsheet and then ran through the numbers. Okay, so let's have a look at the new spreadsheet that I have here. So what I've done here is I've taken all the various materials that you're going to need throughout this shuffle. So tie spray linen, nylon thread. I've kept this nylon thread as a manual price 0.52 based off my averages. You can always put that in manually yourself. And then I've looked at my average buy price for each of these things: tie spray linen, tempest hide, calcified bones, coarse leather, all the tailoring and leather working things you need. I've not included the hardened tempest hide or the embroidered deep sea satin because those are really for the sinister gear. I've gone through and noted down my average buy price for all the different things so far. Now these figures are a bit out of whack at the moment for my server because, for instance, Tempest Hide is remarkably cheap at the moment. I've got a feeling that's going to change as I start buying up more and more of the market. But for now it's really cheap. Everything I've done here is based off of average buy price, buying these off the auction house. You can obviously go out and farm these things, especially if you've got a Skinner. So bear that in mind. But for this, I'm just going through average buy price because it's the quickest and easiest way to do it. Obviously, if you're going to go out and farm your stuff, factor in the fact that it's going to take you time to do that. It already takes time to do this bracer shuffle. So bear that in mind when you're looking at your numbers and coming up with something. These are meant to be changed and fiddled around with so that you can get an idea of prices and decide what's best for you. So feel free to take a copy of this. I'll put a link to it in the description below. Take a copy, put in your own numbers and use it as much as you like. So the yellow section here is where you put in all your figures. And based off of these figures, we come up with a bracer price for each of the different bracers you can make. So here we've got tie spray bracer is going to cost me 64 gold to make. Coarse leather arm guards cost 93 gold to make. And shimmer scale arm guards will cost me 90 gold to make. So based off my averages here, I can see that it's clearly still better for me to make tie spray bracers over the other two. Now as the market changes and prices fluctuate, this might change, so I'll have to keep an eye on that and then change my tactics accordingly. So what you do then is you make tie spray bracers, you disenchant the blues, which will give you Umbra Shards and Gloom Dust, and you scrap the greens, which will give you your Expulsum. Now have a think about which character is going to do this scrapping, because Expulsum's soul bound, so make sure it's the person who's going to be making the honourable gear and passing it back to the enchanter. So from these prices, we then come up with a price for Umbra Shard, Gloom Dust and Expulsum. I went through all the calculations of this in my previous video and how I came about these numbers. So I'm just doing an extension based off of that. The main thing I'm doing here is I'm looking at the three different prices, and this price comes off the minimum of whichever these three is the lowest. And then over here I've also got just shows me where all the averages are at the moment, and I went into this weighting as well, which kind of works still at the moment, but again my values are out of whack slightly because of the cheap other things. So that just gives you an idea of where I was at before in my thinking, and these are the numbers I came up with. You can see here I put down the DB market prices just to give myself a comparison of where things were at, And obviously Umbra shards are really expensive at the moment, 330. Veiled crystals are up here at 500, but we'll get into that in a moment. So from these three prices, I then looked at, okay, so we need to now make some honourable combatant bracers. Now it really needs to be rank 3 for these to be the most efficient. So you'll need to go and do some PvP for some marks of honour to get your rank 3s on all three of these preferably. And then from there you can see I've got different prices for the honourable bracers. You can see the cloth bracers are 773 gold, so there's no point in me turning those into veiled crystals because that 773 is higher than my usual price of 500. But look at here, honourable leather bracers are only costing me 163 gold to make. This is based on my prices here of Tempest Hide and Calcified Bone. Now obviously these are really quite low at the moment. I imagine these are going to skyrocket over the next few weeks. But what that means is I can pass all the honourable bracers back to Samadan, who's going to disenchant them, and he will get a guaranteed veiled crystal from these. And then there's also a kind of roughly about 0.37 chance for an Umbra shard as well. Now I've not currently taken that price off of the veiled crystal. The veiled crystal price is exactly the price of this. And so I'm kind of thinking this at the moment as like a bonus amount, because if I was to take this off of here, veiled crystals would only be 100 gold. And then you look at that compared to the Umbra shards, and you think, well, okay, well, I could then use the Veiled Shatter to create 2 Umbra shards out of that. So I could get Umbra shards even cheaper by doing this. So the main point of this spreadsheet is basically for you to put in your own numbers and make decisions based on what you can see and think, okay, well, where's it going to be cheapest for me to make things? Because looking at this, the Honourable Leather is a really good one at the moment, but even the Honourable Mail, if I could get some cheap misscale, is even cheaper than my veiled crystal price. So that's the basic principle in passing bracers from one character to the next, doing the disenchant and trying to get the best price possible for your veiled crystals. Now the aim is here that your enchanter is going to be making a lot of the new enchants at the moment, because they're doing really well at the moment, because with the new raid released there's a lot of popularity for those. But also you've got a tailor that could be making lots of sinister gear, and also a leather worker that can also be making a lot of sinister gear. Now depending on your server, those may still be selling quite well. They're certainly selling well for me at the moment. So this way, with just 3 professions, you're really maximising their gold making potential. Now also bear in mind that if your material prices for these things are going to be rock bottom, there's an easy temptation to crash the markets of the actual enchants and things themselves. So try and keep an eye on those and try to make sure you're not underselling yourself, because we also need to take into account the time it takes to do all of this. So what I did then is, using all of this, is I've come up with some larger price strings here for Umbra shards, Gloom Dust, Expulsum and Veiled crystals. Now these are obviously going to take in the minimum between whichever's the cheapest to make out of the bracers, and I'm also including here average buy, because there may be a chance that you actually pick them up cheaper. I know I can sometimes do that with Gloom Dust, so I'm taking that into account as well. And then we've got a Umbra shard price here, a Gloom Dust price here, Expulsum and Veiled crystal here is basically the cheapest honourable out of the 3 different ones here. And then I put in a manual price for my nylon thread. Now remember, these are all average buy prices, so it's important to have an average buy price for everything here, because those are the things that you're going to be buying in as larger quantities as you possibly can. And keep an eye on the prices and adjust your strategy accordingly. So if we go into Samadan here, look in our crafting reports, click on materials on the right hand side, and then look for Expulsum. I've already put in the values here, so you literally copy and paste from the spreadsheet into this figure here. You can see this is actually a really long string, so you can copy the whole lot in and paste that in, and you can see here I've got a map price of 126, which is close to my Expulsum price here of 129. There's probably a difference in my averages since I last inputted these. And then Umbra shards there at 158, but again just slightly less than these ones here, so it's taking my averages real time in game and giving me a map price for each of these. So also bear in mind I've got an average purchase price there of something like 169, so if you've not seen the correct numbers that you're expecting, it may be something to do with the average purchase price. It all depends on what happens with your own buying patterns. So what I've also done is I've made a group in TSM, and I've called it the Bracer Super Shuffle group, and this is a shopping group for all of the things that we're looking for. And then I've added in the sinister items that you might need: embroidered deep sea satin and hardened tempest hide. Now I'll put a little paste bin for this in the description, so you can import this yourself if you like. Now the group operations for this are simply a shopping average buy operation and a sniping average buy operation. That way I can keep an eye and just try and get my average buy price as cheap as possible. So if I was to go in here, I can have a look here, do a shopping scan. So I can go in here and I can have a look at various things. You can see here I got some tie spray linen. That's a good price there. That's below my average buy price, so it's good to buy that up. Calcified bones are particularly cheap there. I can look at see how many there are at the cheaper price, maybe pick up something that's in a larger quantity there. And then what you can also do is obviously put these figures in to your spreadsheet and have a look at what that means if you started buying, say, Miscale at 11 gold or Tempest Hide at 2 gold 75. Is it still cheap to buy that at 2.75? So you go in here, change my Tempest Hide to 2.75, and you can see down here the Honourable Leather price has changed to 177, which means my Veiled price is still 177 here, so it's still a decent amount. I mean, what happens if Tempest Hide was 10 gold? What would that make the Honourable Leather price? 264. So 264 is still reasonable. So you can have a look at the figures and make decisions yourself. You may find that, say, Tide Spray prices go up really high. Say they go up to 10 gold. Now it's no longer the cheapest to do Tide Spray braces, and I'll be better off doing Shimmer Scale. Of these three, I'd probably recommend the Tide Spray braces or the Shimmer Scale, because coarse leather is really useful for your sinister leather gear, which in general tends to sell better than the mail gear. So if possible, try and get some Shimmer Scale cheap. I mean, if Shimmer Scale went up to 12 gold, then that makes it now 108, so then I'd swap back to Tide Spray braces. It's all about putting the figures in, getting an idea as to how it affects the bracer price, how it affects the honourable price, and then therefore how it affects your Umbra Shards, Gloom Dust, Expulsum and Veiled Crystals. So that's the spreadsheet in a nutshell. Again, like I said, I'll put a link to this in the description. Take a copy of it yourself, put in your own numbers, have some fun, and see if you can get those prices of enchanting materials right down, which will maximise your profits. And hopefully we can all make some gold. I mean, you can even sell these materials like the Umbra Shards and the Veiled Crystals straight back on the market if your prices are particularly high, and make some gold that way. There's so many different possibilities. So I hope you found that useful. If you have any questions, feel free to pop them down in the comments below, or ask me in my Discord or when I'm live streaming on Twitch. I look forward to hearing about all your gold making adventures. So until next time, happy gold making, and I'll see you soon.